I'm Casey Brown. I'm here at gorgeous Lowell, Michigan on a beautiful October afternoon with my 1973 Utva Model 66. All right. I picked this bird up back in 2015 down in Homestead, Florida. I was looking for something a little bit bigger than the Cessna 140 that I was flying at the time, so I could carry my my wife and my two boys around. We had a little jump seat in the back of the 140, and the kids were outgrowing that quite rapidly. And my father called me one day. He lives in the air park, him and my mother down in South Florida, and he says, "Have you ever heard of an Utva?" And I said, "No, I haven't." So he sent me some photos of one down in Homestead, Florida. It was this one, in not as good a shape as it's in today, but it was all there. It was complete. It was essentially airworthy. And so we started talking. My father and I both kind of fell in love with it, how ugly it is, yet how pretty it is. And next thing you know, we're doing the deal, and my dad flies down to Homestead, Florida for a couple of days to wrench on it, get it airworthy, get it signed off, and bring it back to his air park in South Florida. Took us about a year of just tinkering with it, some fresh paint, some marginal repairs here and there, but it was a complete aircraft. Between my parents being snowbirds and me up here, we worked together, and I would work on some parts up here, he would work on some things down there. Fresh paint job, new windscreen, new rear hatch, plexiglass, new suspension pads installed, remote oil filter, lots of little cleanup things, and a fresh paint job. That was essentially it. We spent some time and just got it looking like an airplane again. It was pretty sun faded, it was pretty weathered out. It had the original camouflage paint scheme on it still when we picked it up, so we were able to duplicate that and duplicate all of the labels on the underside of the wings for all of the hatches. We had paint masks made to cover all of those and duplicate all of the proper Serbian nomenclature on the underside of the wings. It was made in Yugoslavia, essentially just outside of Belgrade, which is now Serbia. This was built back in 1973. They were sourcing Lycoming GSO 480s in these 3-blade Hartzell props. So the cool thing about this is everything firewall forward, for the most part, is all American. And that was one of the clinchers for my dad and I, is that we had an American power plant, American prop on the front, hanging on this monstrosity of a Yugoslavian airframe. And if you look around the airframe, you're going to see a lot of similarities to other manufacturers. Between Cessna, there's some hints of what you might see on a Helio Courier. There's fixed slots in the leading edges of the wings, similar to a Stinson. It's got 40-degree flaps. It's got flapperons that come down between 10 and 15 degrees. So when you get this thing slowed down, the sink rate is substantial. You have to have a lot of power in to maintain your proper glide slope. And that's exactly what this engine likes. It has the GSO 480, so it's a Lycoming 6-cylinder, 480 cubic inch posing engine, and it's gear reducted. So it has the gear reduction gearbox on the front of it, and it's also supercharged on the rear. So it's blown and gear reducted. It makes about 340 horsepower at full takeoff power. And you feel all of it in the seat of your pants, to be. Fuel burn on takeoff is around 52 gallons an hour. Fuel burn at my economy cruise, which is about 100 knots, is about 18 gallons an hour. So flaps are hydraulic, and they come down about 40 degrees. You have flapperons, they come down about 10 to 15 degrees. Suspension is a very much like a Mooney style, just much larger. You have 3 sandwiched, they're now polyurethane, they were rubber, but a small community of Utva owners had pooled together some resources and had new pads created out of polyurethane. So we had a set of those that came with the aircraft. And they do a substantial job, phenomenal job of taking up the impact on landing, especially if you're coming in short and you kind of drop it in there from a few feet above the surface. It does a fantastic job of absorbing that. Tail wheel is strictly theirs. It's a 10-inch tail wheel, but it's a manufactured tail wheel by that company, so it doesn't have any sort of a manufacturer to it. It's totally Utva. It does have a locking tail wheel, which is nice for takeoff and landing. And it also has a tow hook back there. I've never tried to use it, but it's there. I've often thought about maybe trying to figure out how to become certified to tow a banner one time just to say I did. And it is a non-steerable tail wheel. So you've got independent braking is the only way to steer this aircraft on the ground. So you have no assistance from the rudder pedals other than brakes. Toe brakes on the rudder pedals. Each brake has 4 brake pucks on it, and they're substantial. If you land this and you push down on the brakes, as heavy as this bird is, you can lift that tail off the ground and you can keep it there when you're slowing down on the roll. Gross weight is just over 4,000 pounds. Useful load is 1,400 pounds. Fuel capacity is 30 gallons a side. So your economy or your cruise, your range is I want to be on the ground in 2.5 hours at my rate of consumption. It goes through gas pretty quickly. It turns, like my father said, it turns avgas into engine noise very economically, but it doesn't do anything else economically. So these aircraft came into the United States. I have one of 4 that I know that are flying right now in the US. There's a few up in Canada. I think mine is probably the truest to the original paint scheme and the original configuration as they would have been manufactured for the military back when they were manufactured back in '73. All of the other ones around here are all in civilian paint schemes, and they look, for all the world, just like any other Cessna once you do that to them. But they were imported into Canada, and a gentleman thought that they would make pretty good bush planes. And they do everything about that really well, except for they're just not very economical. And then because they only made 150 of them, you eventually run into a parts problem with the airframe. Engine and prop, not such a big deal, but the airframe, if you were to have a problem out there in the bush and bugger up a wing, you're gonna have to figure out how to deal with that because you're not gonna get another one, not easily. So I think there was about 24 that were brought in, and then they've kind of found their way, some into the US, some stayed into Canada, and some just never became airborne ever again. Got an actual wing walk up on it. And it's right down this spar here, and I can go all the way out to the fuel fill, all the way out right here to the beginning of the slots. It's pretty cool. It's nice if you don't have a ladder and you want to fill up your fuel tanks, just climb up on the wing. Skip all that other hassle.
So then the other fun thing about this airplane is the markings on the instrument panel. How long since you've seen a fuel gauge in Corvino? Or this guy here in kilograms per square cubic meter something. I don't know what that is. That is oil pressure, temperature, and fuel pressure calibrated in metric. Good stuff. We got an ADF stuck in the middle of the panel. Over here, airspeed indicator in kilometers. And then up here, just in case you wanted to drop some ordnance, we got a switch panel, a fire control panel. And then you've got a ordnance drop release right there. Beautiful stuff.
Still got the pickle on the trigger.
Oh, look at that.
So you still got the pickle button for shooting targets out of the sky or lighting up troops on the ground.
That's the way it goes. You always fly with emergency gear.
You have a selector up, neutral, down, flap indicator.
And then the big handle.
Still here on the flaps, right here. Yeah.
Okay.
So the first thing you learn about a Utva is they're tall. You need a step ladder to get to them.
They give you a nice drop step here, which is pretty handy. Clear!
Okay, the mighty Utva comes to life.
Like most tail draggers, you don't have a lot of visibility over the nose on the ground.
Right.
With a big long nose, this one is particularly hard to see.
Well, there you go, all you pilot-to-pilot lovers. We had an absolutely fabulous time learning all about Casey Brown's Utva 66. What a magnificent beast of an airplane. My God, I never heard anything so loud in my life. Hey, we want to thank you for coming along today, and by way of announcement, small milestone in the pilot-to-pilot family, we have passed 500 loyal subscribers on the Tango Sierra channel on YouTube. Couldn't have done it without each and every one of you. We appreciate you watching. If you're new to the channel, please hit that big red subscribe button and ring that bell. You'll get a notification every time we publish. We got lots more good stuff to do, including the launch of the 1X here very soon. Stay tuned. For now, it's Captain T. So long.